What's up, everyone? Glad to be back uploading videos on this channel again. It's been a while. I'll get into that later, but for now, let's get into Kansas City Chiefs against the Detroit Lions fantasy football reaction. Detroit pulled off the upset 21-20. Looked like Kansas City was going to come away with this game, but then there was a key interception that turned the momentum in this game, and Detroit ended up pulling it out in the end with a 21-20 victory. So we'll get into the fantasy football outlook for this team. Goal is to do this for each of these games moving forward, and we'll give some advice about what to do with these players as you go through the season. So let's start with Kansas City, and we'll go position by position. Quarterback. So obviously Kansas City in this game, they're missing Travis Kelce, so that has an impact on this offense. A lot of changes in the offseason. They did not there's a lot of changes on this team. Juju Smith-Schuster not there anymore. Mecole Hardman not there anymore. And with Travis Kelce not there tonight, then Kansas City's having to rely on a lot of new players. So this obviously hurt Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes had an okay game. He did have an interception, but that was not his fault at all. Basically, Toney kind of ruined that for him. But finished the game 21 of 39 with 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. So not a great game by Patrick Mahomes standard, but he did put up 20 points in standard formats, which is not bad, but it's also for a guy that is generally going second round and for one quarterback leagues and number one overall in a lot of 2 quarterback leagues. It's not really what you're looking for. So what happened in this game? So in this game, it largely looked like he wasn't comfortable with his receivers. There were a lot of times where he underthrew balls. A lot of plays were broken up. And I think that part of this will come with time, but I wouldn't panic on Patrick Mahomes just now because there is going to be Travis Kelce coming back future. He's going to develop some more chemistry with his teammates. But it is concerning overall for the outlook of this team because they really don't have a second option that stood out. I'll get into some guys that could be stepping up into that later, but for now, there's a lot of concerns that maybe this will not be as explosive as a performing offense as we've seen in the past. Patrick Mahomes is still going to be an incredible quarterback value for fantasy football. So I would not panic and try to trade him away, but you may want to temper expectations of what the season could be because he doesn't seem to have that elite weapon right now, and it doesn't really bode well for the future when his top weapon is dealing with an injury and he's 34 years old. So some things to consider there. But for now, don't make any serious moves on Patrick Mahomes in terms of trying to trade him away or anything like that. But this may not be as great of a season based on the outlook we had of this game. In terms of their rushing attack, so some encouraging signs for this team is that Isaiah Pacheco, majority of the snap counts, led the team in carries, and he also led the team in receptions as well. So this is a good start for Pacheco, who for the most part was going late in drafts. So if you're taking someone on an offense that has the potential of a team like Kansas City, and you're getting Pacheco in the 7th, 8th, 9th rounds, that's a solid value. And I like the fact that he had a lot of opportunity in this game. Didn't really do a lot with it, but still, this is a guy that I would definitely try to buy low on if you can. I think that there's going to be some better outcomes moving forward. Detroit is a pretty good defense. So Pacheco is a buy low candidate who had a pretty encouraging output in this game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire emerged as the second option on this team. This is another guy that I don't think it would be bad to take a flyer on. He's largely undrafted in redraft leagues, but he's somebody that is a solid pickup that you can stash on your bench and see what happens. Because if any kind of injury happens with Pacheco, then this is a guy that can fill in right away. Interesting note from this game is Jerick McKinnon did not have any carries. He also was on the field for a decent amount, but he only had 1 reception for 10 yards. So is this a sign that maybe they're shifting away from him? Potentially. We can't really say that for sure right now, but it is interesting to note that he did not seem to have the involvement of years past. So just something to consider for moving forward. some other notes on this team. Let's go over to the wide receivers. So this was a very bad game for some guys that had a lot of promise going into the offseason for some of these Kansas City receivers, namely Toney and Sky Moore. So as I mentioned earlier, Kansas City lost a couple weapons this year. Obviously, they lost Tyreek Hill from 2 years ago, so that's a major void that needed to be filled. So you're looking at some of these speed guys like Toney and Moore, who are kind of in that same build of a smaller receiver that have speed and have potential to fill a Tyreek Hill role, which is why they had value. Did not necessarily materialize last year with Sky Moore. They picked up Toney, and he did some things during the seasons, but was not consistent. So now with Juju Smith-Schuster and McCole Hardman gone, you're looking at these guys as, oh, this could be a breakout pick. But these guys were major flops in this first game. Sky Moore had 0 receptions, multiple drops. Kadarius Toney had 1 catch for 1 yard and multiple drops, one of which led to a pick 6. So extremely disappointing from these two players considering that Travis Kelce was not there. Now, I'd like to caveat that and say that these are guys that are largely going to be dropped and or trying to be traded away after week 1, especially after this performance. I would definitely consider picking them up and stashing them because this is something that may change as the season goes along. But again, these are guys that I would not be putting out there in a lineup anytime soon. They are not stepping up to the void that needs to be filled with both Travis Kelce being gone and the receivers ahead of them that left over the offseason. One guy that I did like in his performance in this game was Rashee Rice, the rookie. He caught a touchdown in this game. He also led the team in targets, or was tied with it with Noah Gray. So 3 for 29 and a touchdown. He also had a couple carries as well. This is a guy that seemed to be the one that was stepping up in the absence of receivers competently playing football. So this is encouraging for a guy like him moving forward. Definitely a guy that I would consider picking up if he's on the waiver wire. In a lot of leagues with 10 teams or less, he's probably out there on waivers. Definitely a target that we want to look at early. But don't give up on Sky Moore and Toney yet because they do have involvement in this offense, but they did have horrendous games that will largely make them available. Potential pick up on waivers of guys that will probably be dropped. That's really all that I have of note. Justin Watson is another one that's worth considering, as well as Marquez Valdes-Scantling. They both had okay games. I am not an MVS fan because I think that he is largely a volatile play where he's either going to give you a long touchdown or he's not going to give you much of anything. In this game, he had 2 targets for 2 receptions and 48 yards, which, okay, he caught all your targets, but at the same time, this is largely what's been the case with him through his whole career is he's going to give you big plays at times, but he's not going to get a lot of opportunity. Justin Watson, 2 for 45 off 4 targets. The 4 targets is encouraging, but again, this is a guy that just simply not the athlete of some of these other receivers. I'm not really sure if this is going to continue to be a trend moving forward where he becomes a reliable target, but worth keeping an eye on. Tight ends, Noah Gray, a hot pickup when Travis Kelce went down. He had an okay game in terms of tight ends. 3 for 31 off 5 targets, which is encouraging. But again, this is a guy that until Travis Kelce gets back, I think that he's going to be a potential plug-and-play guy, but he's not somebody that I would feel comfortable rolling out there and starting compared to some other options out there on waivers. Again, Travis Kelce, I think this injury will get better with time, but it's also, this is a guy that if you have him on your team, I would be encouraged with his output moving forward once he does get healthy, just because of the lack of other weapons that stepped up for this Kansas City team. So let's move over to Detroit now. Detroit had some up and down performances. Jared Goff had an okay game. He was 22 of 35, 253, and a touchdown. Not a bad game, but also not a great game necessarily. This is a guy that I think will have some good opportunities in some matchups to be a plug-and-play guy that you can pull in off waivers and start for a week. Not a guy that I'm particularly excited about. But again, I think the encouraging thing for this game is that he didn't have any turnovers. He facilitated the offense well. And I think he's going to have some opportunities in some good matchups this season. Really don't have a whole lot to say about Jared Goff other than that. The big thing I want to talk about is the running attack for this team. So Jahmyr Gibbs, a hot target, high capital draft pick for Detroit, hyped up as a big running back that will be a huge addition as a rookie. Pretty disappointing in this game. He was 7 of 42. Also had a couple receptions as well. I believe he was 2 for 18. I can double check that. Yep, 2 for 18. So not really what you were looking for somebody that you took in the third, fourth round of the draft. Some even higher than that. But I would not be discouraged by this. In fact, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is an excellent buy low candidate for this upcoming week that I would try to trade for. Detroit, especially in the second half, ran the ball a lot more. Jared Goff threw the ball, I believe, 25 times in the first half. In the second half, he just let the team run the ball. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. We'll get to Montgomery in a sec. Gibbs will get more opportunity moving forward. This guy is too explosive and too athletic to not have that opportunity. And if anything happens to Montgomery, this is a league-winning pick considering how often those guys ran the ball successfully in this game. So Jahmyr Gibbs, try to trade for this guy. I think he will still be very valuable as the season goes along. And, the team's staff has even said they're not going to give him a huge workload in the first week of the season. Let him get accustomed to the NFL games. So this is a guy that you definitely want to target that many people will be trying to trade away considering how high they took him in the draft. And that first impression of an NFL player often sticks. And maybe it's not the highest right now. If you're going to take advantage of any time to trade for this guy, now is it. David Montgomery is another one that I think is going to have a lot of value for this team moving forward. 21 carries in this game, 74 yards and a touchdown, the game-winning touchdown. So very pleased with David Montgomery's performance. The only thing I would say is that he didn't have any receptions, which is a little bit concerning. But just 21 carries alone is excellent volume for a guy that generally was not getting drafted very high either. Kind of going around the same range as Pacheco or lower in the 8th, 9th rounds. But if you're getting a guy that late in the draft who's getting this many carries, that's a huge value for you. So David Montgomery is definitely someone that you want to have moving forward. He's going to get a volume. He's going to get some workload. Probably not going to have the upside, but this is encouraging in that, if you have Montgomery, you can put him into your lineup, flex position. He's going to give you some decent baseline floor that's going to make him a respectable flex candidate for you. So, and again, you like the fact that this team, second half, found success running the ball. This means that David Montgomery is going to have his opportunity, going to be a great value considering where you drafted him. Let's go to the receiving game for Detroit. Amon-Ra St. Brown definitely proved why he's a second-round draft candidate. Led the team in targets, 9 targets, 6 receptions, 71 yards, and a touchdown. Great game for him. This is an excellent young receiver who is continuing to step into a role that Detroit needs, and I expect this kind of performance to continue throughout the season. You like the consistency of his play, how involved he is. I think this is going to be an excellent value moving forward. So if you took him in the second round, I think you would be pretty happy with this performance. It wasn't anything spectacular, but I think this is a sign of a great floor to come. And, there's going to be games where he's going to get even more than this. So very pleased. He's clearly the number one receiver on this team. Some other guys I want to highlight. Josh Reynolds had a decent game. He was 4 of 80, 0 touchdowns on 7 targets. This is a guy who is not drafted, who you could probably pick up on waivers, and I think this gives you a good floor value of, a receiver that you can plug in. I would still not feel comfortable starting him. I want to see a few more weeks of this to see if this is a consistent trend moving forward, but a name to consider. Some other guys who had okay games. You had Marvin Jones, who had 6 targets, which is encouraging, but only 2 for 8, which is not a great performance. But that 6 targets is something that I like in that, this is another guy that is not drafted, but his involvement in the offense is encouraging that, maybe in very deep leagues, this is somebody you want to consider as a pickup off waivers. Khalif Raymond was also involved a little bit. He got a catch for 20 yards, but not anything worth picking up. Tight ends. So, this is a team that had TJ Hawkinson, flipped him to the Minnesota Vikings in a move that a lot of people had questions about at the time. And they picked up what appears to be a great discount value in Sam Laporta. It's also from University of Iowa. Sam Laporta, 5 for 39 on 5 targets, caught all of his targets, involved in this offense. And what you like is that he is already outpacing Brock Wright as the targeted tight end on this team. So Sam Laporta went at the end of drafts in deep leagues, and he's on waivers for smaller leagues. This is a guy that is getting involvement as a tight end in a very scarce position in fantasy football. So this is a excellent low priority target that a lot of people won't make a lot out of this performance, but you like the fact that he's one of the more involved targets in this offense. He's going to have his opportunities moving forward. I think this is a great tight end value and definitely a target that we'll talk about more in the upcoming days. We get to week 2 waivers, but Sam Laporta is the guy that I'm targeting at this position on waivers that will be an excellent value, especially if you're dealing with some injuries with guys like Kelce, George Kittle, for example. Detroit defense was also a standout in this game. Interception for touchdown. Aiden Hutchinson just really giving the Kansas City offensive line a lot of difficulties. I think Detroit is going to be a valuable defense moving forward. You like this performance against an offense like Kansas City. They're going to be a hot waiver wire pickup, especially after performance like this. But especially Hutchinson is going to have his opportunities for sacks. Didn't get a lot in this game, but at the same time, I think this defense has a high floor moving forward that you really like. So that's all I got for this game. We'll do some more reactions to these games as well as some fantasy football players that you can pick up as the season progresses. That's all I have for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.